Going on YouTube? In this video, I'll be showing you guys how to integrate ChatGPT with your Raspberry Pi Pico W to start sending prompts to ChatGPT API and get responses for your Raspberry Pi Pico W applications. So in order to get started with that, what I have here is I'm in Thani and I'm using MicroPython, and I just have this script here, which essentially does everything that you need to do this. So the first step here is to have the corresponding imports you need. So we need JSON to do JSON.loads when we get the response from the ChatGPT API. And then also we need the network to connect to the internet because you have to access the API over the internet. Other things we need are the time library to give us some time to connect to the internet. And of course, UR requests to make the actual request to their API to make the curl command to get the response from ChatGPT. Next thing I have here is I have these constants. This is just for me personally where I store my sensitive information in a constants file. I suggest you do the same to prevent you having constants that are sensitive in your code. Jumping into the function here that sends the actual prompt to ChatGPT, you're just going to pass in a certain variables here, which I have explained, I think, in good enough detail. The most important variables are, I think, the API key, which you need to actually have access to the API. Without the API key, you will be rejected, and eventually they will begin to charge you for the API key, so just keep that in mind. It is initially free to get started with their API key, but eventually you will have to put a credit card to start getting billed with this API key. So keep that in mind. Also, what we need, it's important here, is the endpoint itself. There are many endpoints in this function here that you can actually access. So just going over that here, if you go to the documentation, the one we're going to be using in this video is the completions endpoint. But they also have the chat endpoint, edit endpoint, and other things you can experiment with based on your application needs. Now, other than that, the model here we're just going to use is the DaVinci 003 model. They have earlier models, which you may want to use, but that's the most powerful model. We're going to be using that one in this video. This is just the AI models that they continuously release over the course of the year, and they're continuously releasing new models that are always better than the previous models. And of course, the prompt is just the question, that is the input to the model, or what you want to do. If it's an edit model, you want to send a prompt for the text you want to edit. In this case, we're just going to send a completion. So we're going to send a prompt that ChatGPT is going to complete. And we're also going to send max tokens here. So max tokens is the maximum number of tokens to generate in the completion. And that just means that the more tokens we have, the longer response we can get back. And if you have a token of 0, you're not going to get any response back. And so just keep that in mind as well. You can also pass in many other parameters to the model. So if I go to their documentation, you could see that there's things such as temperature, suffix, top, p, n, stream, all these other variables. Depending on your need, you can read into those and see if you need it, but you can get very advanced with the inputs to the model itself. And so that's all in the documentation, which I'll link down in the description below. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to work with these guys over here. Now, jumping down at this code, what we have in this block right here is just us making a connection to the internet. So if you have your internet name and your internet password passed in properly, you don't have to worry about this segment here. The main segment you have to worry about is this portion here, which does all of the UR requests for us. So initially, the headers, we're just going to pass in the API key for the authorization and the contents header JSON. To get an API key, you just have to go to this link, which I'll click down in the description below, and create a new secret key. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it is free at the beginning. You don't have to put any credit card information, but eventually if you keep hitting their API, you will get charged for it and they won't let you access the API until you put a credit card. Next, what you have here is the model, as we described above, the prompt, max tokens. This is just the data we're passing to the request. And finally, we just use the UR request library to post this information. And if we did everything correctly with the API key, with connecting to the internet, and we specified an existing model and the prompt is okay and the max tokens are okay, we should get a response. In this case, what we're going to test today, as I mentioned, is the 003 model. And we're just going to say, write a tagline for an ice cream shop. So this is the test case they had on their website. And we're just going to use the completions model to give us a tagline for an ice cream shop. So that'll be pretty cool. And we're passing in 100 tokens. So the longest response we'll get is 100 characters. And if it's more than that, it'll truncate it. So ideally, if you know you're going to get a big response, you want to maximize the max tokens. It is more computationally expensive to do that. And I think the maximum tokens you can get from this 003 model is about 4,000 tokens. So let's go ahead and run this. I think I put everything correctly here. As you can see, I passed my constants in. If I go ahead and run that, You can see it's attempting to send a prompt right now. Cool. So it gives me an interesting response there. Cool off with deliciousness at our ice cream shop. So that is exactly what I expected. And also, if I send this again, it'll give me a slightly different response. You can tune the model to give you more predictable responses if you like with something called the temperature. Once again, that's all in the documentation as well. And I'll leave that to you to play around with and use this API to your own use cases. So if you learned something quick in this video and it helped you out, please considering like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot. Let me know what you want to see in the comment section down below. And also let me know what you're using this model here for in your Raspberry Pi Pico W projects, because that would be really interesting to me to see how people are integrating this into your project. So let me know. And as always, guys, stay tuned and thanks for watching.